High in the remote, desolate borderlands of Nepal and Tibet, there's this ancient kingdom far beyond the reaches of the modern world. It feels like it has this great, expansive spiritualness to it. This is Mustang. The place of Mustang, it's not something that's on the lips of every single person. I mean, generally, people think you're talking about a car, you're talking about a horse, or you're talking about the ranch, okay? And it's really hard to discuss with American audiences Mustang and pronounce it properly. And some people think you're saying Mustang or something like that. So it gets difficult for us when we're talking about Mustang. But the word Mustang is actually, it's an anglicization of Globos Montang, which actually means in Western Tibetan, the plain of aspiration, or the plain of spiritual longing. And this is really what's emblematic of this incredible place. It feels like it has this great, expansive spiritualness to it. It feels like it has this great depth of antiquity to it. And when you travel in this place, you can't help but feel the great impermanence of it. And you can't help but feel yourself become very, very small, very much like a grain of sand, much like what you'd see in the Kali Gandaki River. That's there in the bottom of that photograph. But high in the remote, desolate borderlands of Nepal and Tibet, there's this ancient kingdom far beyond the reaches of the modern world. It's surrounded by some of the world's highest peaks and riven in two by the great Kali Gandaki watershed. This is Mustang. It's known as the Kingdom of Lo by all of its inhabitants, and those locals also revere a king who's the 25th in direct succession to the first king of Nepal who founded that royal lineage more than 600 years ago. The place is a remarkable essay in a variety of different types of occupations, of battles, sometimes violent, and control of trade that's gone all up and down this Kali Gandaki watershed. Conducted primarily by horsemen, people with yaks and other beasts of burden, they've traded virtually everything from salts to silks up and down this valley. This animation will give you an idea of the depth of the Kali Gandaki River. On one side is the great peak of Dhaulagiri, another side is Annapurna, both of them in excess of 26,000 feet in height. The village of Lomontang, or the city of Lomontang, was established by the first king of Nepal, Amepal, and the walled city that you see here was actually finished construction by his son, Angkwen Zangpo, sometime in the 14th century. If you're to travel in this place, you'll understand the timelessness of it. You'll go into these ancient monasteries that were created somewhat after the walled city was created, and you'll be able to see these practices that have been going on for more than 600 years. But Mustang is a kingdom with a mystery, and that was really the reason why I initially got excited about traveling there. This was way back in 1981 when I was first visiting this place and doing a trek around the Annapurna region, which is a classic trek that many people do when they go to Nepal. I noticed caves surrounding some of the ramparts of the walls of the Kali Gandaki River that you see here, which resembles our own Grand Canyon with soaring sandstone walls and obviously an incredible river at the bottom of it. Of course, traveling up and down this region today is very much like it was 300 years ago. You still will see people loading up donkey trains, loading up horse trains, traveling with salt, traveling with all of their daily needs. Any number of things would be put on the backs of horses, and for trade and for travel, for exploration, but also for pilgrimages, for religious objectives, effectively to move into probably a higher level of self-actualization. And that is why many people still travel in this region to go into some of the sacred spots that they believe they'll be able to take great tidings, learn more about the teachings of people who have passed before them, and achieve greater ascendancy along life's great path. And of course, traveling into Mustang, going into some of these tombs, going into some of the caves, finding the human remains is very much like a time capsule. It's like going back into time. As climbers, we get into these places having gone over very difficult terrain. The rock is oftentimes very unstable, oftentimes shifting. It unfortunately requires a lot of different types of skills. Sometimes we'll use ice climbing techniques to climb rock. It's just very unstable landscape for us to travel in. But we get inside and we're immediately transported back hundreds of years frequently. And we also feel like we're getting close to the people who might have lived there. We see the tool marks in the back of the walls. We see the human remains. We see some of the things that people would have discarded and left behind, and we try to imagine effectively what their lives were like. The lotus-born saint, also known as Padmasambhava, in Sherpa or Tibetan, he's known as Guru Rinpoche, and he's the blessed teacher. This is a being, supposedly, who was the first being to summit Mount Everest. Supposedly in a chair made of gold, on a sunbeam of light, he was able to ride to the rooftop of the world. By the same token, Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, was one of the first beings to travel up the Kali Gandaki region and establish monasteries of Buddhist faith in this place, supplanting the Bon traditions that existed beforehand. And there are stories of legendary battles of Guru Rinpoche between he and the demon or demoness of this incredible region of Mustang. And when one looks at the walls, they're multicolored, red, yellow, black. Supposedly all these colors emanate from bits and pieces of the demon that Guru Rinpoche was able to vivisect and then fling into the landscape. So these are just remarkable stories that one hears throughout the course of one's travels throughout Mustang and the Everest region. One also hears about Guru Rinpoche telling about the 108 Bayuls. Bayul is a word in Tibetan which means sanctuary. And supposedly there are almost these parallel universes that abide in certain places, that if one's reached a level of self-actualization, one can slip inside of them. But without achieving that level, one would never even know that they exist. So this is really the etymology of the Shangri-La myth in many ways. The Tibetans know it as Shambhala. And certain people believe that there are actually these earthly paradise that truly exist. Some of the artwork that one would see commemorate the life of Buddha, commemorate obviously the animistic traditions, and of course the Bon tradition that existed far before Buddhism. But one of the caves that we went inside is known as the Snow Leopard Cave. Reason being is this particular cave really showed no passing of any individual, any being, other than the tracks of this little kitty here. And it was interesting for us to look at this place and to explore this place, because we were thinking, if a place like Shangri-La actually did exist on Earth, could it exist in a cave in Mustang? Could it be a place that was once known for being high, difficult to get to, but perhaps ascendant teachers lived in these places? Perhaps there were places for people to meditate in this area. The artwork that existed inside, was it there for the people to focus their concentration and to move beyond, obviously, the cares, concerns of this earthly life? Well, it's difficult for us to say. I mean, this is one of the great myths that we did explore when we were there. Could there have actually been a Shangri-La? Could there have been an earthly paradise in this place? It's difficult to say. There's this enchantment of the human mind with archetypal utopian landscape that is as old as myth and as ephemeral as a dream. We seem to have this incredible yearning for places that don't exist. Of course, looking into this incredible place and climbing into this landscape is a transcendent experience for me personally, and certainly for Dr. Alderfer and also for Corey as well. This is a place where one sees the presence of humanity. One sees the landscape melting, changing right in front of your eyes. And it's a great, great testament to the great impermanence of life. But to give you an idea of what it's like to take a step inside, we actually have architectural drawings as part of our inventory process and the things we collect to try to effectively document all of our travels. But we also have created this animation to try to take you all inside.
Like most of Mustang's cave complexes, the approach is a struggle. But once inside, the rooms are level and plans are much like a house. Many floors have long corridors, either perpendicular or parallel to the cliff. Vertical shafts connect one level to the next. Cave colonies can range from 2 levels to 10. Some levels containing as many as 15 rooms. Soot on walls indicate cave kitchens, and storage rooms hold large granaries. Most of the complexes have a single monastic room at the uppermost level, a later addition by religious practitioners. These high temple rooms sit atop cave complexes that can have 60 to 80 rooms, a high-rise hewn into a high Himalayan cliff.
So for us to bring back this inventory, to document the materials that we find inside the caves, and then to try to present them and to make sense of them, requires, obviously, an incredible team. That's why we have, obviously, someone like Mark Alderfer. Mark is the real deal. He's truly the real Indiana Jones with all the great academic credentials and none of the looter mentality. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'd like to pass over the leadership here at this point.